Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I hope you're having a great day. My name is Jessica Childress, and I'm the managing attorney of the Childress firm. We're a boutique employment law firm based in Washington, D.C. I'm coming to you this week with just some educational information surrounding non-disclosure agreements. And the impetus behind this particular video stems from a very, very disturbing piece of video content that has been circulating over the past week involving the individual known as Sean P. Diddy Combs. And if you've seen the video to which I'm referring, it is just a vile video in which he is attacking his then girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. And the question is, why would an employment lawyer care about this particular situation? Well, I think anyone who read the complaint that Cassie Ventura, the federal lawsuit, the complaint that she filed in that lawsuit, anyone who read those allegations would be very, very disturbed by the allegations in that lawsuit. Each and every one of them. They're very, very concerning, very disturbing. And my heart goes out to Cassie Ventura and her family and anyone who has been a victim of domestic violence, anyone who has been a victim of assault in the workplace, anyone who has been a victim of harassment in the workplace. My heart certainly goes out to each of you. And so if this content is triggering in any way, I do invite you not to go further and listen to this particular piece of content, because I will describe some laws involving non-disclosure agreements based on the one that I am looking at in one of the recently filed complaints against Sean P. Diddy Combs. But recently this week, again, as I mentioned, there's a video circulating in which Sean P. Diddy Combs is attacking his then girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. And Sean P. Diddy Combs did release an apology relating to that video within the past week. And nonetheless, if you have followed the story, it is just particularly disturbing. It is vile. It is disgusting, the content that you can see, the actions that you can see in that video. Those actions are just simply inexcusable. They are simply vile, evil, and disgusting. Nonetheless, I'd like to talk about non-disclosure agreements. Why do people not report misconduct in the workplace? Why do people not report harassment? That was a question that continued to circulate when the original complaint that Ms. Ventura filed against Combs in 2023, at the end of 2023, Ms. Ventura filed her complaint. And the next day, very soon after she filed her complaint, the case did in fact settle. And people asked, that was a part of the conversation, and you could see this discussion on social media about why wait. Well, initially, Ms. Ventura, there were people who did not believe her allegations. There were several public comments made that were attempting to discredit her allegations. And P. Diddy himself, his social media indicated that those allegations that Ms. Ventura had made were false. And this narrative in which people who make complaints are not believed, it is so harmful to everyone who suffers from any violence in their personal lives, in the workplace. It is so important to, number one, investigate. And this particular matter, it's not for the public to investigate, but it was certainly important to not rush to judgment and invalidate the claims of Miss Ventura. It was very, very important to make sure that in any circumstances in which someone is alleging that there has been violence, whether that is physical violence or sexual violence or any type of violence or misconduct, that that person's allegations are given a level of credence. And simply the comments and the narratives about not believing her and someone rushing to or wanting a payday were harmful to the people who have gone through a traumatic circumstance in their personal or professional lives. And this is simply obstructing people's ability and desire to report because of that narrative, because of that fear that they won't be believed. And so this video that came out, that very, very, I mean, it almost identically tracked what Miss Ventura said in her lawsuit regarding what actually happened. I mean, I believe it was identical. Her recount of what happened in this hotel this hotel hallway, in which she was trying to escape. She was trying to leave the hotel, and you can see P. Diddy coming down the hallway, following Miss Ventura, chasing her, and then viciously and ferociously attacking her. And the behavior, it's hard to even talk about because it really does, no one wants to see a scene like that. I mean, it evokes a feeling of pure disgust, and simply is the level of nausea, because it's just so sickening. But until that video came out, the level of just rebuke of P. Diddy, the level of cancellation that he's experiencing now publicly from celebrities, that level of rebuke wasn't there, despite numerous allegations, despite numerous lawsuits that have been filed. And this culture of silence, I think this is what leads to people not reporting. This culture of silence, this culture of not believing the victims who are alleging egregious behavior, simply rushing to statements that they are not to be believed, is detrimental to progress. It's detrimental to safety. And so what I'd like to do is discuss one of the major themes that is coming out of many of the publicly filed complaints many of the publicly filed complaints against P. Diddy. There are many references to non-disclosure agreements. And non-disclosure agreements are often used in workplaces. And of course, P. Diddy worked with numerous artists and numerous people who were involved in his life. But there was a culture of silence that was created, it seems, from the allegations that have been put forth in these complaints. And one of the mechanisms by which it seemed that P. Diddy did enforce this culture of silence was through non-disclosure agreements. And so I took a look at one of the non-disclosure agreements, or at least the non-disclosure agreement that was attached to one of the recent 2024 filings. And that non-disclosure agreement is riddled with errors, legal errors. There are so many unenforceable provisions in that particular non-disclosure agreement. Number one, there is an extremely broad non-disparagement agreement. And in that non-disparagement agreement, you cannot say anything negative about P. Diddy and his associates. And it's extremely broad. And I encourage you to take a look at that agreement. It's on the internet. You can find it, and it's single spaced. So it's not easy on the eyes. Nonetheless, that non-disparagement provision is overly broad. The confidentiality provisions are just extremely broad, but there is no carve out or allowance, in other words, to allow a person who is subject to that NDA to report illegal misconduct to law enforcement. And NDAs that are that broad are unenforceable. No NDA can prohibit someone from making a complaint to law enforcement. No NDA can prohibit a person from testifying pursuant to a lawfully issued subpoena. No NDA, now Congress passed a law called the Speak Up Act in 2022. No NDA can prohibit a person from discussing sexual assault or sexual harassment in the workplace. No NDA, if you're an employee, no NDA can prohibit a person from making not disparaging comments or from making disparaging comments against their employer if you're a non-supervisory employee. No NDA can prohibit an employer from can prohibit an employee from discussing the terms and conditions of their workplace if you are a non-supervisory employee under the National Labor Relations Act. No NDA can prohibit an employee from discussing their wages if you're a non-supervisory employee under the National Labor Relations Act. So this overly broad non-disclosure agreement is a silencing mechanism. And I hope that if anyone is listening that does have an NDA, that they are really closely scrutinizing their NDAs if they are in psychologically unsafe workplaces where they're afraid to speak up. I hope that you look at your NDA to make sure that that NDA does not have unlawful provisions, because if it does, it's important to discuss with an employment attorney or another attorney that specializes in contracts. But particularly an employment attorney, it's important to discuss whether, in fact, those provisions are unenforceable, because there is no reason to suffer in silence if that silence cannot be enforced and if the employer has unlawfully created that silence. So I'm going to put the phone number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline in the caption of this video. And again, my heart goes out to anyone who is suffering in silence because of domestic violence, because of sexual assault or workplace abuse. It is so important to report. It's so important to believe survivors. It's so important not to be a bystander. And so this particular video, it has been more serious because this is a very serious matter. But I think it is absolutely a discussion that we always have to have. It's an important discussion that we need to keep top of mind, because there's no reason why anyone should suffer in silence. There's no reason why an NDA should enforce a culture of silence. Thank you very much for listening. I'd like to remind you that the information that has been provided is for informational and educational purposes only. The information that I've provided does not create an attorney-client relationship between me and the listener. This is for educational purposes only. Thank you so very much for tuning in, and I hope that you are having a safe and wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.